Hey guys, it's Zag. And as you may have seen by the thumbnail and title, I've done what I thought was impossible. I've created binding vows for D&D. And this is a video about that system, or rather, what it can do. The goal of such was to create a unique way for players to engage with their spells and give them a little bit of personality. Because to be honest, it's one thing that casters lack in D&D. A little extra flair that really makes each mage unique and interesting. For those that have never heard of Jujutsu Kaisen, or JJK, it's basically an anime where people fight monsters called cursed spirits, which are manifestations of the negative emotions of humanity. It's a cool show with some great action scenes and a lot of really neat ideas. One of these ideas is called a binding vow, in which a character makes some sort of internal deal or contract with oneself or another person. Usually these vows see a character giving up something to gain something else, if it be momentary burst of strength or something much more character defining. And instead of boring you with the big explanation of the entire system from head to toe, you can go and join my Patreon and read about the system in depth there. In our video here, I'll be giving a basic gist and overview of what it does, so we can get to the fun part of the video, which will be about the various spell bindings I was able to create. Because the system is called spellbinding, binding vows, binding spells, spellbinding. Anyways, the system in short summary goes like this. You gain the ability to create a spellbind at first level, and afterwards, for every 4th level, you gain the ability to create another spellbind. This makes it really easy for you to track how many you can have at any given point in time, while also allowing for someone to get more used to the system by only being able to modify one of their spells ever so slightly at the beginning. And it doesn't work on cantrips, and only works on spells that are above 1st level or higher, by the way. And much like JJK, one of the essential features is that at every step when you're trying to expand the scope and ability of your spell, you're also restricting its use in other areas. It creates a very delicate balance between greatness and madness that I really wanted to evoke with the spellcasters in my world, while also allowing players to fully express their creativity and ingenuity in new ways through the mechanics of this system. So here in our lovely video, I'll be going over some spell bindings I was able to make after finalizing the system myself. I'll be going over 3 tiers of spell binds from low, mid, to high tier spells, which also increase in the complexity of how they were changed. This all to hopefully inspire and just showcase what the system is exactly capable of achieving. I also tried my best to make it as balanced as possible, as this will be implemented in my own campaigns pretty much immediately as soon as this video is up. Hi everybody. For our first spell binding of the evening, we have Frost Fingers, a nifty 1st level evocation spell right out of the D&D adventure Rime of the Frost Maiden, and it reads as such. Freezing cold blasts from your fingertips in a 15-foot cone. Each creature in that area must make a Constitution saving throw, taking 2d8 cold damage on a failed save or half as much damage on a successful one. The cold freezes non-magical liquids in the area that aren't being worn or carried. And for our example, assume that you're a 5th level caster. And with that out of the way, we can start our spellbinding process. I first took Area of Effect to Variant Change, which allowed me to turn the cone into a cylinder, translating a 15-foot cone to a 10-foot radius sphere with a height of 5 feet. This process, however, lowered the damage from a d8 to a d6, and the range of the cylinder became 30 feet. So I lessened its range further to 10 feet to bring it up to a d8 once again. The result is a spell I would like to call Cold Snap due to its characterized short range and as a little play on its name, Frost Fingers. Now I know there'll be at least one person going, couldn't you have just kept it the same? Well, no. Let me explain why. The spell's very last passage reads, the cold freezes non-magical liquids in an area that aren't being worn or carried. You see, as a cone, the spell originates from you, not making it all that useful for creating any solid surfaces for you to, well, walk over as you would imagine. because the spell would only be hitting the surface of the water and not any deeper than that. You see, because I've made it a cylinder and the source of magic can come from either the top or the bottom of the cylinder, in this case I chose bottom up, with this I can point it anywhere beneath any body of water I see and freeze it from the bottom up, solid, creating a 10-foot radius chunk that is 5 feet thick of ice that I could step on. This also means that you can freeze water completely solid all the way through instead of just glazing the top of it with the cone. Need to cross a river? Well, now you have a neat icy raft that you can float across. Floating aimlessly out to sea with no water breathing spells in sight? Well, now at least you're not drowning. And I achieve all of this with the cost of a first level spell slot, expanding the use of the spell's utility while also creating a nifty signature spell for my potential character. For our mid-tier spell, I went a little bit simple with a rather popular spell called Fireball, which I'm sure everyone knows or at least is somewhat aware of what it does. Basically, you take a mote of fire, you throw it, and it explodes. That's it. And with that, we're just going to hop into how I binded the spell down into something somewhat unique. This example assumes that you're a 9th level caster, so keep that in mind. You probably won't be fighting basic goblins while using this spell, but probably mid to high CR monsters, so keep that in mind as we're talking about damage and the like. Getting into our mid-tier spellbind, I did something rather strange, you might think, and decided to take Area of Effect to single target, which turns our 25-foot radius explosion into a single range spell attack instead. This reduced its range from 150 feet down to 90. Afterwards, I took reduced range to increase its damage, which reduced its range down from 90 feet to 60, but it boosted its damage tier die up to a D8. So now, it's a single target spell that deals 8d8 fire damage with a range of 60 feet. But let's face it, usually a monster is within 60 feet of you most of the time, so the extra footage is a little negligible. With all of our changes here, I began to wonder if I could go further beyond and make a truly diabolical single target spell. So I added Channeled Spell to damage to increase its die tier again to a D10. However, when using this spell, I will now have expended my bonus action and reduced my speed to 0 until the end of my next turn, making me completely immobile after casting it. When I made this particular bind, I really wanted to evoke that feeling of casting a truly powerful spell that makes the caster have to take a moment afterwards to rest or collect themselves because of the expenditure of magic involved. The motivation for this was simple. I love the mental image of a mage that's casting up and charging a really powerful spell, and he just releases it, and it's really cool. It's like that quiet moment of anticipation and build-up before the big thing happens. I know it might not be everyone's thing, but it's one of my things, and I'm sure many of you may share the same sentiment. But with all these changes, I would end up renaming the spell to Flame Piercer, for obvious reasons, as I always imagine the spell taking the form of an arrow or spear-like weapon before crashing into my target creature and doing a lot of hurt in the process. And with the added bind that my character wouldn't be able to move afterwards, it creates a fun dynamic of, should I use this right now? Because misuse of a spell of this type that has this kind of a drawback will be sure to have its numerous downsides in the heat of battle. And now on to the main show for our high tier spell. I chose Ravenous Void from Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. For those that know what this spell is, you know exactly what I'm about to do with it. These spellbinds assume that your character is 17th in level, and by this point in the game, it's really a mystery as to what you're fighting at this point in your campaign. Probably demigods, or actual gods, or anything, or both. Really, no one can really guess. 17th level is pretty rare. I first started off by taking Area of Effect to single target, shrinking our Ravenous Void down to a small orb the size of a grapefruit or a beach ball, which reduced the 1,000-foot range of this spell to a measly 150 feet. Which, you may be asking, Why would you do such a thing? And my answer would be, do madmen need a reason to act? No. But really, it's because when you make an area of effect spell into a single target spell, the effects of the spell automatically begin when they strike the target. The creature who's initially struck has disadvantage on the saving throw roll thereafter. Because of how this works, the duration of the spell becomes instantaneous, but its effects trigger upon hitting the creature, and again at your choice of either at the start or end of your next turn. This increases the likelihood of the successful effects of the spell occurring on the creature struck. And for those that don't know, Ravenous Void reads as such. For the spell's duration, the sphere and any space within 100 feet of it are difficult terrain, and non-magical objects fully inside the sphere are destroyed if they aren't being worn or carried. When the sphere appears, and at the start of each of your turns until the spell ends, unsecured objects within 100 feet of the sphere are pulled towards the sphere's center, ending in an unoccupied space as close to the center as possible. A creature that starts its turn within 100 feet of the sphere must succeed on a strength saving throw or be pulled straight towards the sphere's center, ending in an unoccupied space as close to the center as possible. A creature that ends the sphere for the first time on a turn or starts its turn there takes 5d10 force damage and is restrained until it is no longer in the sphere. If the sphere is in the air, the restrained creature hovers inside the sphere. A creature can use its action to make a strength check against your spell save DC, ending this restrained condition on itself or another creature in the sphere that it can reach. A creature reduced to 0 hit points by this spell is annihilated, along with any non-magical items it is wearing or carrying. Now that is a truly frightening spell, but we don't stop there. That was only the first spellbind I went over earlier. We then took Channeled Spell to increase the die potency from a D10 to a D12, and in exchange, as mentioned before, you wouldn't be able to move afterwards. But wait, after reaching the pinnacle of our spellbinds, you're going to be able to twin spell it, creating not one, but 2 Ravenous Voids to target 2 separate creatures or anything else you want within range. The result is 2 miniature Ravenous Voids which devour everything and anything within 100 feet of them. Creatures caught between them will have to roll not only once, but twice, as we created a backup void in close proximity to them. The first void would give them immediate disadvantage, whereas the second would be a normal roll, but would act as a type of pseudo disadvantage, since they would have to roll a total of 3 times to escape the Ravenous Void unaffected. And so I basically just made Hollow Purple. Enjoy! As frightening as all of that may have been, now we enter the final parts of our video today. How does this relate to Epocrion exactly? For those that don't know, Epocrion is a post-apocalyptic fantasy world and is essentially my world building project that I'll be focusing on for the coming months, and one I'll be bringing to life here on this channel. I'll have videos like these that explore various subjects and topics within the world, but of course, one of the key parts of my content is that we always have to bring it back to why we're doing it. For the story. You see, Spellbinding is a natural product of the arcane advancement of the known world of Epocrion'Eth, and a showcase of the skill of a spellcraftess in the modern age. As every mage has a particular signature spell they have an affinity towards, they express this through minute changes in the spell's expression. You enact enough of these minute changes, and as you've seen in this video, you're able to bend spells in such a way that their intended purpose can be expanded upon in a much broader way. You can also have 2 mages who favor one particular spell but have 2 entirely different outcomes through spellbinding, which are reflective of their personalities. The spellcraftess of Epocrion views spellbinding as a natural part of a mage's journey, a way in which they can express themselves through the arcane arts, and the best part is that these teachings survived the cleansing of light. and now continue into the wastelands of Epocrion today, placing this very same system in the hands of any player that walks this world, expanding the possibilities of the many spells they've come to get used to over the years they may have been playing D&D. But if you don't want to get pulled between two ravenous voids and subsequently annihilated, be sure to like the video and subscribe if you enjoyed today's content. Also, I want you to go to the comments below and give me some potential crackpot spells this video may or may not have inspired you to make. For those that want to support the channel more directly, and if you want to have full access to the Spellbind system, you can head over to my Patreon. You'll also have a special channel that'll be around for a week or two within my Discord, where you'll be able to discuss any neat options you come up with using the system. You can ask questions or even make some suggestions as to what I should add to the list of spellbinds. I'll take the good ones and we'll develop the spellbinding system a little further together. But with that, my friends, that is where we'll end our video today. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.